the virus and more easily spread it to others. It is 50% more contagious than the Alpha variant, which is already 50% more contagious than the original coronavirus first identified in China in 2019. Its new symptoms are headaches, runny nose, and a sore throat. Now, while the Delta variant is still being studied, there are 5 things we need to note about it. 1. It spreads really quickly. One thing that sets this variant apart from others is the speed at which it's spreading. For instance, in just a few months' time, it went from being non-existent to becoming the dominant variant in the US, India, and the United Kingdom. 2. It could cause other symptoms. Cold-like symptoms such as headache, runny nose, and a sore throat top the list in the ongoing study of the Delta variant. 3. Vaccinated individuals are protected against the Delta variant. Medical experts have stated that the Delta variant is no match for the authorized vaccines as they provide a high level of protection against Delta and other variants circulating in the world. The AstraZeneca vaccine has been shown to be 60% effective at preventing infection and 92% effective at preventing hospitalization caused by the Delta variant, just to mention an instance. 4. Unvaccinated people are at risk. People who have not been fully vaccinated against COVID-19 are most at risk of being infected with the Delta variant. And for the first time,
it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Vicky November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Yet another building collapse in Lagos that has claimed lives at the Akanbi Crescent, Onike Yaba suburb of Lagos, about 4 months after a 21-story building collapsed at Ikoyi in the same Lagos. Is this another back and forth for the coroner's inquest to the building collapse in the country. Also, there have been many attacks by terrorists, bandits, and armed robbers, unknown gunmen as well, on citizens in the country. But the recent attacks and killings of policemen who are supposed to protect the life and property across the country is worrisome. A bumper package for you with an interesting guest to analyze the situation in the country, the ravaging insecurity, and the recent unfortunate building collapse in the Yaba area of Lagos. And of course, we have the latest from today's national dailies as we analyze this with a guest this morning. But before we do all these, let's get into the top trending stories that we've been monitoring over the weekend. Once again, you're welcome. We start with this one. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has been, talking a lot recently, making appearances, and some suspect that this is not unconnected to an ambition, a perceived ambition to be president or to make a run for the presidency in 2023. Well, he was recently at an event and he was captured singing, surprisingly, a song by a young Nigerian artist, Ruga, titled Dior. And, it got a lot of people surprised because they wouldn't expect that someone of the age and stature of Nigeria's vice president will even know this song, not to talk of singing the song. And he sang the word of the song correctly. The song titled Dior is one of the hot songs in Nigeria at the moment. Lots of airplay on radio stations, on TV stations, lots of streaming online. And of course, Nigerians were left stunned. And the people took to social media to give their responses, their reactions to the singing of Ruga's popular anthem, Dior. Of course, the president was addressing the audience at the UBA Group's 2022 Chairman's Forum, and he sang the song with the lyrics, "Bad man looking good in Dior." That's really surprising. Bad man looking good in Dior. It was really surprising. And the song was released by Ruga, Nigerian artist Ruga, in 2021 and has been a hit song all over the country. The vice president was on the podium to address guests at that summit. The video shows the former chief executive officer, or the managing director rather, of UBA Bank, of the United Bank for Africa, laughing and enjoying the pleasant surprise of seeing the vice president rather, singing "Bad Man Looking Good in Dior" and talking about drip and all that. It was quite surprising. And he mouthed the lyrics, and his actions spurred different reactions from members of the public. Apart from Tony Elumelu, they didn't expect this at all. What are Nigerians saying about this? Well, some Nigerians are, narrowing it down to politics. We can't leave politics out of any discussion in this country. Some Nigerians are narrowing it down to politics. Someone said his media boys are doing a good job. They think that this is just something to get the young people on his side ahead of a perceived or expected run for the presidency in 2023. Some feel it's a media stunt, publicity stunt. Others feel the vice president is cool to have done this. Someone said he's at least up to date with what is happening around, not like some other people, or not like his Oga that's only talking about grazing routes, is what one of the Nigerian commenting on this had to say. It's quite interesting to see the politicians, especially someone as old as vice president, singing, "Bad man looking good in Dior." It was really surprising. And I mean, personally, I can't get a song out of my head. I haven't had it out of my head since I saw that video. It was quite cute, some would say, But interestingly, Nigerians have now gone on to pick some videos and pictures of politicians doing unexpected things ahead of elections. For instance, there was a video shared of former Senator distinguished Dino Melaye carrying a tray hawking on his head. There was a picture shared of Bola Tinubu sipping what looks like a Chapman or a soft drink with a youngster from the same glass through a straw, and saying, well, these are the things that politicians do ahead of the elections. Interesting development there. Let's move on to look at an event on something that happened, a picture that was taken at the just concluded Lagos City Marathon. Of course, the marathon was dominated by the Ethiopians yet again, showing class at that marathon, both in the men's and the women's categories. Olfata Gelata claimed the first position in the men's race, while his compatriot Dagny Siranesh Yirga finished ahead of all the other runners in the women's race. But this was not what caught the attentions of Nigerians, or the attention of Nigerians, especially on social media. It was the picture of a young man running in, guess what, an agbada, like you can see on your screen. Very bizarre, you might say. We haven't seen anything like this, and the fact that it rained that day made it a very more bizarre scenario. One poster who was one of the first who shared this online on Twitter said, "How you go wear agbada go around for marathon?" It was a big question that people had to now start answering online, and you can see it looks comfortable. It looks comfortable, not just the agbada but also the cap to boot as well. It was quite a sight at the Lagos City Marathon. That was a huge success, by the way. Especially with the rain, people were asking, why was he wearing this? Some said, it's good that the man is promoting Nigeria's culture and heritage at such an event. But it was quite a bizarre one, yet interesting one to see. That's it on our trending segment. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be right back on the other side. Quite a bizarre weekend, you would agree. We'll be right back to dive straight into the newspapers and analysis as we look at the stories on the front pages of the national dailies. Stay with us. You're still watching The Breakfast on Plus.
For upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Booking November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on PlusTvAfrica.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Life can be fun and rewarding, but it also comes with some risk. As in business, you win some, you lose some. And that's why you need to be wise in the choices you make. It's like placing a bet. Again, you need to be wise. Wise in choosing an innovative platform with the highest market options and highest odds ever. That's why Winners Golden Bet, the leader in online, in-shop, virtual, and live sports betting, gives you enhanced platforms that offer you the best chances of winning. for betting on live soccer matches, live dog races, and virtual games. Winners Golden Bet is your best bet. Instant payment on winnings guaranteed. Play online or in any of our numerous shops nearest to you.
Hey guys, be wise. Play on Winners Golden Bet.
Winners Golden Bet, the wise choice.
Praise God, from whom all blessings flow. Welcome to your favorite program, The Moment of Truth, brought to you by the Citadel Global Community Church. Our God is a God of salvation, far above all principality and power, and might and dominion, that regardless of what happens in this season, you will escape. Say to your neighbor, there is no peace for the wicked. The lazy man does not roast what he took in hunting, but diligence is a man's precious possession. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might.
Moment of Truth with Pastor Tunde Bakare, Sundays, 7 p.m. on Plus TV Africa.
Nigeria's Niger Delta region, from where the black gold fuels Africa's largest economy, where the lines between wealth and poverty has never been thinner. Conflicts, poverty, insecurity, and environmental challenges daily confront the region. How can the Niger Delta story be changed for the better?
Join Mamude Akuga at 9 p.m. every Friday evening on Plus TV Africa as he probes deep in search of solutions.
Inside the Niger Delta with Mamude Akuga, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region.
How can we have peace without justice?
Plus Politics. It's not just another political conversation, it's about keeping you in the know. The relevant interviews, asking the tough questions to those that matter. Get the answers you need. Does it mean that the people who were injured, people who were shot at, those who were involved in that stampede are not going to get justice?
It is unfortunate, it is sad that we have a government of deaf and dumb.
Businesses in Africa can be very challenging. In Nigeria, it is particularly intimidating, and successful builders have learned how to navigate a hostile environment to unlock opportunities. But one major challenge businesses face is how to filter through the noise and identify where their ideal customers exist. Get insight and practical steps from industry players and captains of industries. Hear success stories to help you make informed decisions as you scale your business in Nigeria. Watch Business Insights at this time on Plus TV Africa.
Why people are pathetic towards the insurance company. I think it's a bit too harsh. For someone who has been paying for 10 years, I think there should be a bit of a compromise in such a situation. What do you think?
Like I said, you need to speak with your insurance. You don't take it for granted that, oh, I've paid for 10 years, there's a delay here and there. They need to be notified. There has to be a plan for payment. But when you don't talk to the brokers, when you don't talk to the insurance company, and you sit down in your house expecting, I've been paying all of this while, if I don't pay now,
even for a month.
Even for
a day.
even for a day, because if your contract expires today, that's the expiration of it.
Welcome to The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. Time for us to take you through the pages of our national dailies. As always, we will start off looking at the top stories on the front pages of the dailies. I will start off with the Daily Trust this morning. It's been made available by our paper vendor. And on the Daily Trust newspaper, 2023 moves to draft Emefiele thickens. That's the CBN governor. You have some quarters saying he's managed the economy properly, and it's okay. He's fit to manage the nation. Buhari's men pushing CBN governor. He won't go anywhere. That's a rider. Another rider says, group begins nationwide mobilization. Don't distract him. Apex Bank is quoted on that. These are the riders underneath the bold caption. And away from that, you have APC convention. Sale of farms begin amid zoning controversy. That's what you also find. And private sector alliance raises 100 billion naira to fight insecurity. Federal government says Nigeria's social security system poor, seeks ILO's intervention. And just before we move away from the Daily Trust newspaper this morning, you also have property market thrives in Maiduguri as residents decry rent hike. Housewife found slaughtered in Kanu, and Rep summon NNPC GMD over 1.93 billion naira chartered contracts. Ask you to decide on strike today. It just reminds me of the conversation we're having. We thought the strike was going to happen. A decision probably would have been made yesterday. But that's it on the Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
Let's move straight over to the Punch newspaper with these headlines. Fuel sells for 400 naira per litre in Abuja. Others. Scarcity persists in Lagos. And the following riders. Marketers still struggling to return adulterated petrol to NNPC. Corporation pleads for patience, says fuel queues will end soon. At the top of the front page of the Punch newspaper, the following headlines. TCN gets transformers. Banks forex ban, dollar scarcity, inflation, firms closure imminent, experts warn. Banks forex ban, dollar scarcity, inflation, firms closure imminent, experts warn. And final few stories from the Punch newspaper. NDLEA seizes 25 kg US, UK, Dubai bound drugs in spare parts fabrics. Ekiti teenagers land in prison over alleged attempts to kill sex worker. Olubado, we await Makinday's verdict today, says Balogun. Ondo Cocoa Factory plans $1 million pilot export to boost foreign reserves. That's a good story there. Agbekoya threatens to confront aggression against Igboho, and death toll hits 5 in Yaba building collapse. Details on page 30 of that newspaper.
All right, away from the Punch newspaper, let's quickly look at the leadership. And on the leadership, COVID raises 100 billion naira to combat insecurity. APC, PDP split FCT Council chairmanship seat. And that's what you find in boldly written convention. APC in dilemma over governor's plot to impose chairman. And the rider says governors settled of picking the chairmanship, and then there was going to be a fair field for everyone to contest. No end to fuel scarcity as Nupeng mobilizes for nationwide strike. And troops, police kill scores of bandits, rescue 20 kidnapped victims in Niger. And you also have Northern Governors mourn Dambaba, death toll in Lagos collapse building rises to 5. Delta short schools over death of 19 months pupil. And this is some of the headlines on the leadership newspaper this morning.
Let's go over to the Nation newspaper, the lead headline there. And SARS, federal government renews battle with Culture Minister Lai Mohammed through the ministry's page on Facebook and Twitter. More headlines from the Nation. CBN forecloses forex rebate for raw produce exporters. CBN forecloses forex rebate for raw produce exporters. Senators, reps protest proposed exclusion from APC convention. Olubado to be Balogun picks name. House wears new look. PDP, APC share FCT councils equally. PDP chair, are you excited? Those some papers were having the narrative that the PDP thrashed the APC in that council poll. But anyway, let's move on. AGF to CCT Chair Dan Ladi, submit yourself for probe. AGF to CCT Chair Dan Ladi, submit yourself for probe. It's been an interesting episode or drama, if you want to call it, with this particular man. Tinubu meets with monarchs in Ogun State. There's a lot been going around as far as the presidential aspirant Bola Ahmed Tinubu is concerned, and his meetings with those he's been meeting with. But let's leave that for another time. Senator seeks reconciliation in Osun APC. Ekiti 2022, I'm yet to join APGA, says Oni rather. And death toll in collapsed Lagos building rises to 5. Quite unfortunate situation there. ASU keeps students' government in suspense. Yesterday, the students were having a field day on Twitter, reminding us that it was past 5 p.m. and they were yet to be told whether there would be a strike or not. Indian held over 134,700 bottles of codeine. Those are stories coming on the front page of the Nation.
All right, let's have Opunabo Nkataria join the conversation this morning. Good morning, Opunabo Nkataria. If you can hear us, it's good to have you join us.
Good morning, Mercy. Good morning, Kofi.
All right, looking sharp, Opunabo Nkataria, and I would like to wish you a happy Valentine's Day.
Yes, happy Valentine's, but Kofi, you know this is my style.
Definitely.
You know that, yes.
Definitely. All right. Let's start with the situation as far as the Nigerian government is concerned yesterday. And this is coming out of in Canada and what's happening or what happened in Nigeria during the NSAS protest. Also looking at the actions of Twitter regarding the protest and the actions of the online, basically, companies banning some of the funding sites, blocking the funding sites that were set up to raise money for this protest. Your thoughts on this?
Yes, I cannot comprehend the necessity for such comparison. You know, we are fond of skirting issues, especially when those issues are not auspicious to us. You're talking of Nigeria, you're talking of Canada, we are talking of, what Nigerians are saying is that the federal government is trying to guard the press. What Nigerians are saying that the federal government is trying to be draconian. It is dredging up in another form, in this guy's Decree 4, 2 and 4, when Buhari was a dictator in 1984. I don't know how old you were then, Kofi, but
let's not go into that.
Don't worry, Kofi, don't worry. I won't tell the world. I won't tell the world about you.
No problem.
I won't tell the world about Messi. Don't worry. But your patience betray you anyway. So, but some of us were in secondary school, about finishing us at that time. So we are quite seized of the consequences of that decree and the effect it had on Nigerians. And that is why Nigerians demonstrated when the federal government talked of guarding the press, the Twitter. You remember, before the Twitter issue, the issue of the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation trying to also guard the media, especially the electronic media, was also a burning issue. It was in the news. They came up with all kinds of guidelines and so on in order to strangulate the electronic media, especially channels and AIT. And so Nigerians are saying, no, we are going to reject this issue of gagging the press. Now, they use the issue of bringing down the tweet of Mr. President as an excuse. That was just a special reason. And we said the same thing happened to, what's his name, the former president of the United States.
Donald Trump.
Who just left. Donald Trump. Yes, Donald Trump. And the American government did not react that way. So why are they now making reference to Canada? It makes no sense. There is No preview whatsoever. It makes no sense about as I'm concerned. Lai Mohammed, unfortunately, I said this before, Lai Mohammed has exhausted his usefulness and is only trying to continuously ingratiate himself with Mr. President. But he has forgotten that he will be out of office. Maximum 1 year from now, he will be out of office. And whatever he does in office will definitely haunt him for the rest of his life, not just him, and even his generations unborn. Because whenever his kids come out, his son is a member of the House of Assembly in Lagos. So whenever people go to say, I am Lai Mohammed's son or grandson, it will immediately awaken reminiscence of his sordid and draconian activities and actions while in government. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't think that should even be an issue. We should concern ourselves with whether the federal government will continue to gag the press, and if the federal government insists on gagging the press, or if the federal government insists on terminating freedom of expression as enshrined in our constitution, then Nigerians will react. I'm not interested in whether the comparison or no comparison. Now they are talking of Canada. Tomorrow, when we talk of Canada, they will tell you, oh, this is a sovereign nation. Why do you make reference to Canada? It's a sovereign nation. This same government has said the international community should not interfere in our policies. The same government that is making reference to Canada is the same government that is saying the international community should not interfere in it because we are a sovereign nation. So, I mean, this is a government with lips dripping with words of nullifications and interposition. So I'm not interested in whatever Lai Mohammed is saying. The comparison is completely unnecessary, nugatory, and makes no sense whatsoever.
So, Opunabo Kutaria, what do you now make of the fact that Syrup is suing the federal government and asking that whatever agreement that they entered with Twitter International should be made public? Because, Syrup feels very skeptical about whatever agreement that should not be used as a pretext in order not to allow the people to express themselves, because this agreement has not been made public.
Yes, that is a valid part. That is one valid point. I mean, you must make the agreement because, yes, we agree. The federal government is supposed to be the intermediary. And of course, we've given them the power, so to speak. When I mean federal government, we are talking of the judiciary, we are talking of the executive, we are talking of the legislature. A lot of people think when they say federal government, you're talking of just the executive and because of the overbearing influence. Nevertheless, it should be made public so that Nigerians are also going to scrutinize what these agreements are. Now, you reach an agreement with Twitter. You must have even forced them under duress to agree on one or two things. But again, one or two things that are adverse to national interest. Now, public interest, rather. Now, but again, I believe that Twitter has lawyers, seasoned lawyers, that will also take into consideration the protection and advantage of Twitter, the organization itself. But then, it is meant for Nigerians. So Nigerians must know what the terms of agreement are. And we can also disagree with some of these terms of agreement. We can also disagree. It is not all about the federal government alone. And these persons forget that they will be out of office. And when they are out of office, they will be victims of the very draconian laws they are trying to put in place. That is the truth about it. But I completely agree with Sarah that the terms, the content of the agreement should be made public and subjected to public scrutiny because it has to do with everybody. Not just Mr. President. How can you ban Twitter because they brought down the tweet of Mr. President? And the tweet of Mr. President that was brought down was highly inflammatory. It was capable of dividing the nation further because it talked about a drop, referring to the incident as just a drop in an ocean. And all kinds of things that could lead to stimulate chaos in the country. It was highly inflammatory. How can you allow that to continue? How would you allow that to go?
All right, Mr.
And now you talk of hate speech.
Okay.
You also talk, the same government is talking of hate speech. But the government is the purveyor of hate speech.
Mr. Kutari, let's move on. Let's move on to the next one that I'm sure also will tug at the strings of your heart, because any parent and any adult in Nigeria wants their children to have a smooth educational process till they're done. on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper, this headline, strike, anxiety as ASU takes decision today. That same paper talking about the Vanguard newspaper has put out a breaking news that ASU has taken its decision and they are to go on a 1-month warning strike. So that headline from the Vanguard has an update, a breaking news that after serious deliberations that dragged into the early hours of Monday, the National Executive Council of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, has voted to embark on a 1-month warning strike to press home its demands from the government. A source at the meeting held in Lagos told the Vanguard newspaper in confidence, they say, that the strike is to allow the federal government to do the needful, failure of which the union would have no choice than to go on an indefinite strike. I don't need to say any further, Honorable Kotare. Your response to this?
You can never trust. Speak from both sides of the mouth. Whenever you go into an agreement with the government, they renege. How many times have ASU gone on strike? How many times have they reached accommodation with the federal government? And on every occasion, the federal government reneged. This is a government that steals billions of naira every day. Every day, stealing billions of naira. Look at the fuel, the bad fuel that has been imported. Now, immediately, first they told us, oh, NNPC is importing, exporting and importing. Now, they are telling us, oh, it was, how is it, subcontracted or whatever to persons. They started mentioning that it's a government that you can never trust. ASU reached an agreement with this government. Whatever it is, a memorandum of understanding was reached. Also a memorandum of action. Why is the federal government finding it difficult to implement? Whenever the ASU wants to go on strike, the next thing they will call for a meeting, which is a delay tactic. It's a Fabian policy. That is what the federal government is employing, the Fabian policy. They invite you, promise you, tell you to call off the strike, you call off the strike, and after that, they renege. They come up with one excuse or the other. Why is it difficult for the federal government to fund the education sector? Why? All you need to do is cut down on your expenses, frivolous expenses. That's all you need to do. But they will not, because their kids are outside the country. They have what it takes. And my dear, I know what I went through to stay for my daughter to study law. Thank God she's done. It cost a whole lot. It cost a fortune. Here they tell you law is 5 years. Outside, 2, 3, 4 years. We are just floundering the morass of procedure. Rather than system. Meanwhile, you go into study law for 5 years, which is very unnecessary. You end up
at least at the tertiary level, as you know.
It has nothing to. It is not just the end of public education. We are talking of education as a whole. Where is the point? I believe you are referring to the public schools.
Exactly.
That's what we mean.
Especially at the tertiary level.
Okay, yeah, at the tertiary level. Now, of course, the primary schools don't go on strike, secondary schools don't go on strike. We are talking of the tertiary. Now, but the truth about it is that, okay, now let us say Abuad. I think that's what it's called, Abuad. This Fred Babalola's University or something. Now, if you have maybe 5 private schools and you have 100 government schools, first, how many persons can afford the school fees? If you go to this Base University, it's about 4 million naira. How many Nigerians can afford 4 million naira? You start your year 1 there. Maybe in 5 years you're done. Your colleague in a public school will graduate 3 years after you. Then for those studying law, are you sure that when you finish from Abua, because at times too, these private schools ensure that these public schools ensure that the private schools also embark on sympathy strike. So are you sure that when Abua, if there is no strike, I'm using that as an example, in Abua there is no strike, 1 year, 2 years. You think the lecturers in the public school will allow that to continue? That will not happen.
Well,
that is one. No, wait. That is one. Number two, because it will be disadvantageous. Number two, it could lead to students' protest and unrest in the society. If you are just looking at a microscopic view, taking a microscopic view at it, we are not giving it a panoramic view. It could lead, because when I know how bad I felt when my school went on strike, and my colleagues, my mates in other schools, did not, because it was that school that went on strike. The teachers, there was an internal problem. My colleagues in other schools graduated few months before me, about 6 months. I know how bad. And I know we wanted to stage a strike, a protest. We were to go back on the protest before the university called off the strike and addressed it. So we are just not looking at a microscopic view. Let's take a holistic approach.
Is this holistic approach?
And number three.
All right.
Finally, so that you talk.
Sorry.
Finally, yes, the public schools, the effect is going to have on public schools. The public schools will be condemned for just those who cannot afford what it takes to go to these private schools, including the lecturers will resign and look for greener pastures in the private. So the quality will drop.
All right,
and that is why we also have half-baked students.
Talking about the quality dropping in the public tertiary institutions, some people have said even the private companies these days prefer to employ students who have gone to private universities. Is it about time the federal government, looking at the difficulties that they've faced in education? We've had these strikes ongoing for years now, from the military era right to the democratic republic we have currently. And it's defied the parties. In the time of the PDP, we had ASU going on strike, and the APC has come on board. ASU is going on a strike. Is it about time the federal government tells itself what may be the truth, may be the truth, and say we can't do it? State governments take over the schools, the universities that we have in your domain.
And just to add up to that, I know we have been talking about, the effect of having the strike, but let's also look at some concerns that some people have raised. I mean, some people are saying that the leadership of ASU over time have compromised, and that's why over time you find out that these strikes are being called off 2 days after they threaten. They say we'll go for strike forever. They already understand the dynamics that the government will not live up to the expectation. I mean, this has been going on for a very long time. And the big question always would be, why do you engage when you know that the government will not agree? So what is the thing? That question keeps popping up. What is the thing that the government says to ASU that makes them call off the strike, and then, they have to come back 2 weeks after they're embarking on that? Now, some people have mentioned categorically saying that the leadership of ASU over time have compromised, and that's why these strikes and all of this continue for a long time. But I'd like to share your thoughts on that.
Yes. Kofi, you remind me when I'm done with her question. I think I've forgotten. That ASU, Labour, NLC, and all these other unions all compromise is not in doubt. And that is why the federal government is treating the body with levity. They know that they will only back and not bite. If you're embarking on a strike, and you know that the reason for which you embarked on that strike has not been achieved, why call off the strike? Meanwhile, this has been the paradigm of the government. You call off the strike, they renege. 6 months after, you go. Even if it will take 4 years, embark on that strike for 4 years, as painful as it is. There are times you destroy a system to save that system. As painful as it is, you know that at the end of that strike, you have achieved at least 90% of what precipitated that strike. A situation where you embark on the strike, They invite you to a round table. In the night, they give you brown envelopes. If they don't give you brown envelopes, you get a lot. Because that is the truth about it. There is no other justification for calling up a strike when you have not reached or the reason for which you embark on that strike has not been addressed. That's it. Then why are you calling up the strike? Then after 6 months, you embark on that strike, including NLC. So most times I believe that these strikes are used as threats to get money from the authorities. And unfortunately, only a few of them, microscopic few, are the ones benefiting. Majority of them don't. Maybe the officials are the ones benefiting. And so when they are broke, they embark on the strike. When they are broke, most of them, I believe, their kids are not even schooling in this country. When they are broke, they embark on the strike. They issue strike warnings. If they issue the strike warnings, they expect invitation. If the invitation doesn't come, they embark on that strike. Otherwise, I ask you, Mercy, if I say I will not come to work unless my salary is paid, you now plead with me to say, no, come to work. By the end of this month, that salary will be paid. I come to work. At the end of that month, that salary is not paid. The next month I say I'm going. You say, no, come to work again. And then there's nothing. By the third time, if I come to work without my salary being paid, I am a fool or there is more to it than meets the eye. That's the truth about it. Your issues are not been addressed. Every day you call us strike, you embark on strike, you call us because they are compromised, they are corrupt. They are one and the same person. And the ministers are enjoying it because they use that as an excuse. It has become a security vote, kind sort of thing. Your Excellency, let us sort them out. They'll call up the strike. So the minister is enjoying, the lecturers, the officials, the actual officials are enjoying. That is what is happening. Otherwise, you call up, you go back on this strike, and don't call off this strike until the issues are addressed.
But some people will still say,
parents will be angry.
But some people will still say that this is still in the realm of speculation. I mean, there's no evidence.
No, you know, like I keep saying, meaning, I believe you all did not study mass comm somehow. Meaning is not in the message, but in the message user. So, in other words, everybody reserves a right to interpret the situation the way he sees it. And that is why in everything you do, you must not be ambiguous. Just like they are calling for the agreement of the content, the agreement between Twitter and federal government. Don't create room for ambiguity. Because once you create room for ambiguity, all kinds of interpretation will be woven into that. As far as we are concerned, they are corrupt. If they say they are not corrupt, the onus is on them to prove that they are not corrupt. How do you explain that? I just use salary as an example. If every day you say you're going on, you're not going to work until they pay you, and next thing the end will call you. Next, if you're a woman, they'll say because he's having an affair with you. Because if you're a man, they'll say no, you understand what they do, you have an understanding with the man. That is the truth about it. That is the truth. There must be more to it than meets the eye. Otherwise, what is the result? Backing on the strike and calling up that strike without achieving the end. It is ridiculous.
Mr. Kunabo, I mean, this particular issue, I know the illustration, you're trying to put out the comparison, but I mean, that's not the case because there are a lot of, organizations where a lot of people work and they're not being paid and they constantly go to salary, go to the office, and it's not that anything happens, but it could just be that...
No, listen to me. Listen, you're getting it wrong. Let's, in perspective.
Okay.
Now, you are not paid, you're going to work. Maybe you're doing that because you're sympathizing with the organization. Maybe you're doing that because you know the financial situation. Maybe you're doing that because you're not depending on that. Maybe you're doing that because you're looking for another job. But what I'm saying is, Mercy, you say, I will not go to work. The management invites you. It's a different scenario. Please with you. Promises by the end of the month. End of the month you come. They say, oh, sorry, next month. Next month, they say, oh, sorry. So, unless you're also rudderless, unless you don't have any future, you will just get out of that place. If you continue to go, it's simply because you don't have any other alternative. That's the truth. If you have an alternative, fine. But then, because why you're doing that is because you're mounting pressure on the system or the organization to pay you. Especially when you know, for example, that your MD globetrots with your family, meanwhile your salary is not paid. You will not like that.
But if your MD is bankrupt or something, you might sympathize with him. All right, Opunabo, let's move on. Let's move on to other stories.
Okay, on final note, if you know that your strike will not achieve the aim, then don't go. Don't embark on it.
Interesting.
It's as simple as that. Don't embark on it. Because you're also frustrating the students. So don't embark on it. So if you know that you are going to call off the strike without achieving your aim, don't embark on that strike. Because you're also frustrating the students.
All right. So I apologize, Opunabo, for the interruption there because of the network lag.
No, it's okay.
I actually thought you had landed on your point. But permit us to please move on to another one because of time. The big issue, and the Punch captures this as its lead story on the front page of the paper this morning. The fuel queues are still with us, and the Punch is telling us that the petrol is selling for 400 naira per litre in some filling stations in Abuja, the nation's capital, and other parts of, and saying that fuel queues will end soon. What are your thoughts on this, that we're still at this point this week? This is 7 days after the first queues popped up in Lagos and several days after they popped up in Abuja.
Well, for depth of news and being alive to responsibility, it's an issue. So the papers will carry it and make it on their headline. But the truth is, you will only be an investor to think that the federal government is not involved. The federal government is just trying to extricate itself because of the furore it generated. Otherwise, who imports? Who gave license to those that are importing? Who is now paid? Who is now indemnifying? The same federal government. From this issue of we are going to pay back reward and so on, they are going to also make money. The federal government has failed to address the petroleum industry sector for obvious reasons. Corruption. That is where they make their millions, their billions of dollars. And so there are all kinds of shenanigans. I listened to the minister for, they were going to atone financially for the damage. How are you going to do that? It affected my car. How are you going to reach Oplaven Kotaria to pay for it? How are you going to reach Kofi Battle to pay for it? How are you going to reach Mercy to pay for it? They'll also select those and tell you they are paid. They'll vote money. They think fast how to steal, how to embezzle, how to defraud. They'll tell you, oh, we have paid our social amount. Kofi, you're not going to be part of it. You're not going to be a beneficiary. These people, initially they said they were the ones importing. They exported, they sent out, and they paid. They refined abroad, and they have... Until we had this issue, we never knew that they actually got orders to do this job for them. It was when we had this issue, this problem, that we heard that, oh, no, it wasn't NFDC, it was MROS, it was this, it was that. So much secrecy.
Well, but Mr. Kutare, yeah, we're also hearing from the front page of the Punch newspaper, we're seeing that NUPENG, the National Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, is set for a strike in this period. They're saying that this road fund that was brought up, that's meant to go to those in the petrol supply sector and the oil and gas industry, this road fund, 621 billion naira of it has been diverted by the Ministry of Petroleum Resources. They said they haven't seen the money. Here we go again. This is into another situation.
But this has just busted what I said now. It just busted what I said. NUPENG is also going to go on strike because NUPENG was not part of the deal, the loot. I bet you. NUPENG of the Kokori is not NUPENG of today. NUPENG will go on strike and they'll be invited to a round table and they'll come up with one reason why they have to call off the strike or suspend the strike. Mark my words.
All right.
They are a part of the strike today because they are not going to be, they are not invited. Probably the ministry forgot about NUPENG, getting NUPENG involved in the loot. the fruits of the crime. The Pen never tested. When they give them part of it, they'll call up the strike or suspend the strike. They'll tell you they have reached a meeting, a accommodation with the federal government, and so they have decided to suspend the strike. You look, if Nupen is serious and has the interest of Nigerians at heart, let it embark on that strike. Because the federal government will never account for that.
We have to let you go.
I challenge you. The federal government will never account for it. I now challenge Nupen to embark on that strike. Let us get to the end.
We have to let you go at this point in time. Thank you so much. We're really out of time.
Mercy, you're always letting me go. You're always letting me go.
We have to let you go.
Mercy,
Thank you so much.
Today is Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day. I thought you'd be softer on Oporabo and Katara. I wish you happy Valentine's Day. She hasn't. So
happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Val, Mercy. But unfortunately, Justin is not there. Could you be careful?
I have to watch my back. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
I've reported you already. All right. Happy Val.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Have a wonderful day.
Much.
Have a wonderful day.
It's always a delight, listening to him share his thoughts on some national issue, and that's the sides of it. On Off the Press, we'll step on the brakes now. Let's tell you what happened today in history.
Well, of course, we'll be back after this break, and we have interesting conversations coming up. The Yaba building collapse is one that is, throwing a lot of people into mourning, and it's a here we go again situation. Really sad. Especially the fact that you hear 5 people have died, and the story of Damola, the IT student whose body was spread out rubble. Really, really sad. We didn't expect to have something like that. We'll talk about this when we come back on The Breakfast. Stay with us.
In raising our kids, parents should stop playing God.
The internet is actually using the people.
But when you are looking for money to help other people, then it becomes easy.
Don't rush into marriage. I always say this. You rush in, you rush out.
Family is the bedrock of every society and the essence of life.
On Today with John and Helen, we dig deep into family values in every sense of the word.
Join us every Saturday at 9:15 a.m. on PlusTvAfrica, DSTV channel 408.
With you, we play a part in strengthening the values passed from generation to generation.
To study law, none whatsoever. I was more inclined to fine arts. My only ambition, I would say, was to become the chief prosecutor. For me, politicians are a bit too playful. That's what I believe. And since '99, we've seen how much investment in social events, in launching some streets that you just started, and the whole day will be spent on this occasion. Rich people are generally law-abiding. We are not law-abiding. So another problem of administration is that people don't follow the rules.
Timeless Conversations, airing every Sunday at 8:30 p.m.
Welcome to your favorite program, The Moment of Truth, brought to you by the Citadel Global Community Church. Our God is a God of salvation, far above all principality and power, and might and dominion, that regardless of what happens in this season, you will escape. Say to your neighbor, there is no peace for the wicked. The lazy man does not rouse what he took in hunting, but diligence is a man's precious possession. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might.
Moment of Truth with Pastor Tunde Bakare, Sundays, 7 p.m. on Plus TV Africa.
Building collapse on Saturday afternoon in the suburb of Yaba. It took the combined team of officials of Nigeria's National Emergency Management Agency, the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, the Nigeria Police Force, and the fire service about 24 hours to get to the bottom of the rubble of a three-story building. And on Sunday evening, a body of a student on industrial training was recovered from that rubble, raising the death toll to 5. The Zonal Coordinator Southwest of the National Emergency Management Agency, Mr. Ibrahim Farinloye, confirmed the development to newsmen. Just as the rescue and recovery operation was about to be concluded, we're told, having rescued 2 persons and recovered 4 bodies, relatives of the IT student simply identified as Damola had informed the emergency rescue team that their son reported to duty the day the building collapsed and was yet to be found. Farinloye said the mother of Damola fainted when one of his relatives identified the body to be his. Now, this sad and unfortunate incident comes 3 months after the collapse of a high-rise block of luxury flats under construction at the Ikoyi area of Lagos on the 1st of November 2021, which claimed the lives of 46 persons, and of which a coroner's inquest is ongoing. Well, joining us now to analyze this and look at this unfortunate development is architect David Maje Kodumu. He is the chairman of the Nigerian Institute of Architects Lagos State Chapter. Glad to have you on the program, despite the unfortunate circumstances. Thank you very much for your time.
Good morning.
Good
Thank
morning.
you very much for having me.
It's yet another unfortunate one. Why does Lagos State experience recurring incidents of building collapse?
Yeah, thank you very much. Though we've been advocating, when we say we've been advocating, quite a number of the professionals in the built environment have been advocating for the right thing to be done. Unfortunately, this is another one. Now, you made mention of the one that happened at Gerald Road in November. Now, what are we waiting for? It's almost how many months ago? 2 months, 3 months ago? A coroner was set up. An investigative panel was set up headed by, a renowned professional in the built industry. Where's the result? Where's the white paper? I can personally speak, for myself. I've been involved in so many reports, making a submission on building collapse, you know, as far back as almost 2 decades. But up to today, no white paper. So what are we talking about? Now, someone was calling me last night and said, yes, oh, you need to make a statement. How many times have we made statement? How many times have the government hacked on the statement? Now, I was at the site not more than 30 minutes when the thing happened because my office was just less than a kilometer away from it. I was there from about, was it 4 o'clock till about 8 o'clock in the night. Yesterday I was there too. Now, I asked myself a question, what is happening? Who is to be blamed? Now, we have to wait for the investigation to be done. Many investigation has been done on many building collapse, and today, what's the result? We don't have a white paper on this. We don't have any publication to say this is one is brought to book or this is the cause of it.
So, but you're looking at it, yes, we know that an investigation will be conducted, but as an architect, what would you say would probably be the cause of this collapsed building, especially the recent one that happened in Yaba?
Yes. Now, being at the site, I could see, you know, some structural defect. And the hollow block waffle slab was used, and then the reinforcement in buildings or 10 buildings around this area that looks like this, you know. And also, even at the site, you hear, oh yes, we saw this, the deflection in the slab. Why don't you talk? Maybe they talk, but why hasn't the government acted on this? Yes, it was also said the the building was sealed. Why was the building sealed? Is it for structural defect? I think it's high time we're in the world of Sorosuke. Yes, let's know why the building was sealed. And then why does the contractor or the developer, you know, went back to continue the building when the building has been sealed? So that's a question to be asked. 2, also, looking at the system as well, I don't think the government has enough manpower or the resources. Now, I've worked abroad, and we see the way it's practiced. You find out that, okay, they go to seal a building for a reason, maybe structural defect. There has to be a follow-up. We've advocated to the government to outsource this. There's so many experienced professionals in the built industry, most especially in Lagos, because if you are to talk about the number of architects in Nigeria, majority of them are in Lagos. If you are to talk of number of engineers in Nigeria, Lagos has the highest in all the professionals in the built environment. But at the same time, I believe the government still needs to do more. You know, the last time when the one of Gerald Road happened, I was on the hair with so many more requirements in terms of materials, in terms of labor to use, in terms of the quality. Now, who is monitoring this?
So you're saying that there's no law right now on governing, you know...
The enabling law for the National Building Code has not been done. Now, you're talking of Yaba. Now, when you domesticate the National Building Code, then the likes of regions or states will have, when it's domesticated, will have, you know, their building regulation. In England, when you want to do any development, after getting your planning permit, you apply for your building approval. And you find the government monitoring the building or the site every week, if not every week, every 2 weeks, because there are stages that you have to get certification for. Yes, we have the Building Control Agency in Lagos. They've started. Are you with me? Because in this world, everything is digitalized now. And you have stages. But where it's digitalized, you can always click on your computer and find the present situation report. And I can authoritatively tell you that at least the NIA has been advocating for even e-submission. I, for one, have been in the team. I can mention almost about 3 or 4 commissioners in Lagos State, you know, and e-submission, why haven't we got it today? And all what we are saying is just on your palm. You can find out the situation report. Like this particular building, you will have put it on that apps. You know who the architect, who the engineer is, and put it to the government. And with the app or whatever, they will act immediately on it. So my take on this, one, investigation will be done, but saying it, you know that there's a structural defect. But at the same time, I think the government, I'm sorry, you know, it's the same thing we say every day.
Architect, if this building was sealed off,
yes,
by the authorities, I don't know which of the authorities it was, because you know these days everybody wants to seal something off. You know, it could be local government. I don't know if it was done by the Lagos State Building Control Authority. How are people, human beings, able to access a building that has been sealed off for work, for other activities?
Thank you very much. It differs. On some building sites, you have the hoarding. And the moment either, you see, one thing is when they said it's sold off, all we know about sold off or what is visible to us is that red mark. Do you understand?
Okay.
And in some cases, you find where there's a hoarding or there's a gate, a chain, a padlock is, you know. So if you break it, that means you've committed a crime. But a place where you don't have much hoarding, or you don't have any hoarding on site, and you mark, and it's still accessible, yes. You know.
Is it maybe also down to the abuse of this red mark? You know, the red mark has become a sign. You know, some signifier of translate it to mean, oh, come and see us and settle us. You know, so people would say, well, let's just continue. We'll settle them later. You know, and it happens across the country. You know, local governments or state building agencies will just go and just mark X, and all they want is money. So people, you know, take that as, okay, we'll settle them later. Let's just continue what we're doing, you know, because the genuineness and the power behind that X, that red mark, it's lost its value, its bite.
And even the rumors has it that the house was marked twice.
Thank you. If the house has been marked twice, I mean, if for the reason of structural defect that it was marked, fine. Immediately within 24 hours or 48 hours, get your equipment in and then break it. When you know the people's lives are in danger. Contravention notice. After the contravention notice, there must have been a stop work notice. After the stop work notice, maybe a demolition notice. Are you with me? And even where there is no demolition notice, we had it now that he's been marked twice. Why was he marked twice? That question needs to be answered. You know, and if he's marked either for not meeting the requirement, maybe the approval requirement, let's know. If he's marked for structural defect, please let's know. And then if it's that, the government have the power, you know, to take up the site with immediate effect, because people's lives are in danger. And look at the result of it. Yes.
Okay, all right.
Because that's where the demolition notice comes in.
Why don't we have, is it impossible to have states, you know, create or enact their own building codes?
Definitely. You know, when you talk about development control, now we have 3 tiers of it. You have the federal government, the state, and the local. But as you know, the state is in charge of the development control in their state.
Is it by law or
yes,
just?
By law.
Okay.
Now, Lagos State took the bull by the horn and is still the only state today that reviewed their development control law, of which I was a party to the policy making to review this law, which was reviewed in 2010, though the work started from 2008. As I'm speaking to you today, at least they have the latest one of 2019. And ideally, development control law is supposed to be reviewed, if not every 4 years, at least, if not every 2 years, maybe every 4 years, because you update with the system, with the technology. Yes, Lagos State has done well. The development control law that we use in Lagos State today is dated back to 2019, whereas other states are still using the one of the 1980s.
Some don't even have.
No, they do have.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay, because your colleagues in River State would say they don't have a building code or nothing.
Yes, you know, yes, fine, I can say the National Building Code exists among the professionals in the built industry, but like I said, there is no enabling law.
Okay.
So where there is no enabling law, that means it doesn't exist.
But states can go ahead and do what Lagos State is
That's
doing.
what we're advocating with the Lagos State now. I mean, if they've taken the bull by the horn to review their development control, you don't need to wait for the national. I mean, we're talking of the enabling law. Who makes the enabling law? It's the National Assembly.
What's the benefit and the purpose of this building control law in Lagos State?
Now, the benefit, it clearly states, like I said, the minimal requirement, the minimum requirement for the materials to be used, for the labor to be used, the quantity, and then you'll be able to monitor. And for all other elements in the building. Now you go into some houses, you're climbing the stairs. The moment you climb one that with a low rise, the next thing you see another one. I mean, these are part of the building regulations. It clearly states, I mean, we're coming into this studio now. We don't know whether the walls are fire rated. You don't know whether the doors are fire rated. All this is well spelled out.
So if we have all these things, why are we still seeing these tragedies?
We won't see these tragedies, my dear brother, because it's clearly stated for this column or for this lab to meet this requirement, certain number of, I mean, the materials must have been tested.
Yeah.
Are you with me? Okay. And make sure that they meet the requirement. Okay, let me just give you a good example. You want to cast a slab. The moment you mix the concrete, you put up just about one cube boxes where you have 4 of the concrete you've mixed, and you send it to the laboratory. The first of the 4 is tested 7 days. The second is tested 14 days. The third is tested 21 days. And the fourth one is tested at the 28 days. And that will have told you the strength of the concrete you're using. And then you get a certificate. The same thing with your iron rod. Now, they will have tested the iron rod, the quality of it, the strength, and to know that, oh, this is not going to corrode easily, because even the sand you're using needs to be tested. The cement you're using needs to be tested, because some of this sand sometimes is taken from the lagoon or from the ocean, and it has a high salt content.
So it brings me now to the question, because some people say that there are procedures that need to be met before work actually commence on site, and some say you need the soil testing, architectural design, mechanical design, electronical design, and structural design.
Yes.
And some people say that for most of the buildings that have collapsed in Lagos, and amongst others, of course we're staying in Lagos now, is that the developers ignored the first, which is actually the soil texture. But do you think that that's the case right now with the Yaba? Do you think that that's the case with the collapsed building at Yaba? And is that usually the case? If one of these procedures been ignored, does it mean that everything will go down? Some people who argue for this say that usually if the first is ignored, then you can have it being faulted at all levels.
Yes. Now, let me go back to the National Building Code. The National Building Code is actually into 4 parts: pre-design, design, construction, and post-construction. What needs to be done at the pre-design? First and foremost, you need to do a soil test to know the strength of the soil that you want to build on. That would determine what type of foundation you have to put. Now, that area you might think is a solid ground, but there's a lot of a swampy area along, when you're going to University of Lagos, both left and right, is more of a swampy area. You'll find there's been a lot of development. Now, if the soil test has been done, maybe you won't have had, I can't say whether it's done or not. Now, it's from the soil test, apart from the architect doing the design, it sits with the structural engineer to determine what type of foundation, and then what goes on after. That is the substructure, which is the foundation, then before the superstructure, which is what you see, the columns, the walls, how many floors is going. And it's that soil test and the foundation you put in that would determine how many floors. Not only that, reason why we're talking of the code and the building regs, now you liaise with the authority. The authority will tell you, yes, what is the density provided for this area. Now, is it 1 family unit or 4 family units? I mean, looking at that structure, looks like 6 family units, where there's parking space on the ground floor and 6 flats. So that tells you 6 family units. Now, is that what is stated in the government regulation for the area? Then, after doing all that, you now submit to the authority, the fiscal planning authority, where the assessment will be done. And after the assessment is done, even where you have maybe some alterations to make, you go back and do the alterations. Thereafter, you get the planning permit, and then you get the building approval. Now, when I said the state government has took the bull by, I'm talking of the Lagos state government has taken the bull by the horn. It was from this law that the development control were divided into 3 parts, where we have the Lagos State Fiscal Planning Authority, which handles the planning permit, and you have the Lagos State Building Control Agency, which deals with the building approval. Then you have the Lagos State Urban Renewal Agency, who looks at the whole master plan, to know whether this area needs to be regenerated or, you know. So the things are in place, but negligence, most especially by who we have as so-called developers who try to cut corner. Pound foolish, penny wise.
But I mean, if you have these laws, laws are made to be broken, you know. We can't say because we have criminals roaming the streets breaking the law, we allow them, you know, to break the law. There's a place of oversight or regulation or the regulator. So with the beautiful setup of the Lagos State, you know, building, you know, development and control law, setting up these 3 aspects of, you know, the urban, aspect, the building control aspect, and the planning. Why are we still having people, you know, being negligent or cutting corners, and we have buildings collapsing like we had in Ikoyi, we have in Yaba, in Lagos State? I've been out of Lagos State before now, and one thing I would always notice is that we keep hearing stories of collapsed buildings in Lagos State.
Yeah, thank you very much. There are a lot of factors, or a lot of things to be done. Number 1 is the awareness. Now, when we talk of awareness, you need to come down to the grassroots. Like I advocate for one thing, you know, I mean, I'm of Yoruba tribe, you know, even regardless of being mixed race. Now, you want to talk to a bricklayer or a welder. He doesn't understand English, but you look at the 4 stages I mentioned in the National Building Code. We said pre-design, design, construction, after construction. Now, what does pre-design mean? You can say the foundation before you start, which in Yoruba you can say ìpìlẹ̀. I don't know, I've tried to translate it to all the 4 languages, but when you make the carpenter, everyone aware of this, the awareness, that's number 1. Number 2, as the government got the resources, you know, where it needs to be outsourced, outsource it. Number 3, attitudinal problem.
Resources to monitor?
To monitor, yes. That is to the professional bodies in the built environment. Now, the attitudinal problem of our people, which you mentioned. Now, we talked of many investigation has been done on building collapse. If we are to date back to the one I've been involved with, maybe from 2008 or 2003, are you with me? We have over 20. Now, have you brought out any white paper on this? And when you bring out the white paper, you publish it, Abi, and bring the people involved to books, whether they are dead or they are alive. When you start bringing people to books or, you know, punishing them for it, others will be, not that, let me see who I can see, do I know the governor, or do I know the cabinet, or do I know one senator? But even that senator or that whoever wants to speak, I give you a good example. The traffic one last month. I mean, I've been caught before. And even where I thought, I know someone, the ticket is done immediately. And you make payment. And, so you can imagine if that can be done on the LASMA side, I don't know the reason why it cannot be done on the other MDAs, other agency. So let's bring the people of the past, to books. Penalize them, punish them, so that will serve as
a deterrent.
Thank you to others. That's just.
Okay. So people are being let off the hook easily. It means government is not being hard and it's really not living up to its responsibility. It's interesting you talk about outsourcing monitoring of building construction in Lagos State and in Nigeria as a whole, because even for the government projects, the ones that are in the budget every single year, we see things like budget for monitoring, and this budget for monitoring is going to a private company. Maybe a road is being built, for instance, East-West Road. The budget for monitoring this project went to a private company, that made sure that everything was in line with what was on paper and all that. So government even outsources monitoring of its own projects to the private sector. So it's strange to hear that, they've not outsourced them. Do you think that will be easy to push through, to see that being done? The government says we're not big enough to do this. It's too much. Let's allow private hands come in.
Right. Thank you very much. Yes, like what you've said now, apply mainly to the road construction, from my knowledge. Now, a good example is Lagos State. There are over 48,000 construction sites in the entire Lagos State. I'm talking of the Ibile, Ikeja, Badagry, Ekpe, Lagos Island, and Ikorodu. There are over 48,000 construction sites. Now, how many people do we have to monitor 48,000 construction sites? Let's get the record or the statistics out. I don't think they have up to 100 registered or fully architects in the entire Lagos State MDAs.
Okay.
Talk less of the engineers or talk less of the other professionals. Now, in the best global practice, even in Singapore, in America, in UK, where you think everything is in place, they still outsource. Now, in one of the countries, they call them accredited checkers. We've made all this recommendation.
For years now.
For years, we have what they call third-party certifier. We have accredited inspectors. Every country has a kind of a nomenclature or whatever they give. And you find out that I'm an architect now practicing in UK. I might not even touch a drawing board or do any design for some years. All I'm doing, I'm an agent to the government monitoring. So if you are the one that designed and she is the owner, now I don't have anything to do with the two of you, but I act on behalf of the government to monitor. And this thing bestowed on me that if I do anything wrong, I'll be jailed for it. So the one important thing is to have that. Actually, the Lagos State chapter is having a seminar this month where we're inviting the president of the insurance broker to come and let's talk about this and let's see the way out. Now, because when you look at this collapse in Yaba, definitely if there's a professional indemnity insurance in place, the structural engineer or the whatever will go, at least will have peace, because he might have instructed the developer that, sir, this is not right. I mean, we heard about the one in Gerald Road, where the engineer has to pull out. So there's so many things that needs to be put in place.
Okay, so maybe we'll begin to talk about some of them. You have talked about the fact that we don't seem to have enabling laws, although the laws exist. The National Building Code needs to be domesticated. And so do you think that that solves the problem, or is it the problem of creating awareness? Because most times with our laws, like we already know, you find the issue of implementation a big deal. So you have the laws. So even if you have the domestication of this National Building Code now, what happens with implementation, monitoring and ensuring that people are complying to it? So there's a lot of it, but how do we address it? What's the way forward? I mean, we're talking about a sustainable solution at this point.
Yes. I gave an example of the LASMA. the traffic management in Lagos. I mean, you look at what it was maybe about 1.5 decades ago. But when we had BRF and all the other governors or from BRF time, there was enforcement. Now, if we're to have the enabling law, the reason why all this, they're getting away with this is stated where so he gets away with murder because he can buy anything, he can do anything. But where you have the regulation in place and they know that this is a penalty. Now, this has dated back to so many years. The laws of Hammurabi. He who killed by sword will surely die by sword. So the moment you are found guilty for putting people's life in danger or you've killed someone, definitely you have to be killed as well. I just give on a lighter note, how do my surname came to be Majakodumi? Are you with me? My great-great-grandfather has horses and, maybe due to the carelessness of one of his servants cleaning the horse, the horse, kicked back and killed one of his daughter. So his friend were now telling him, please forgive him, don't let it pain you. And I can tell you vividly, that's how Majakodumi came in. The laws has been there for years. So if we have this enabling law, and they know that this is a penalty for this, are you with me? Then the enforcement will come in naturally.
So,
interestingly,
but there are penalties. It's not like it's not like we don't know. I mean, we begin to cite some other issues.
Okay.
For instance, maybe we digress a bit to say security issues. We have killings that are going on in this country. You look at the northern part of the country, whether they call themselves the bandits or they're just random persons. People are killing, and the criminal code talks about murder killing. It's a crime. But how come, you still have these persons moving around freely? It's not like we don't know what the penalty says about you committing a murder. That's why you have a system. So whatever the case is, be it an grievance with one tribe or the other, you have a law, you have a system, you have a government, and that's why things should be addressed. But you don't see people being arrested. How many persons over time you just find people being emboldened. And so it feels like this is trickling down to every sector, including, the building sector. And that's why we constantly, so even if we say we don't have sufficient laws, to actually guide the activities, but the little that we have, how efficient have we been with it? So it's a concern.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, the country is in a rot. I can say that the country is in a rot because we are the one that voted these politicians. And they're there to carry out, this. Now, you mentioned the bandit, we mentioned Boko Haram, you mentioned, all these, maybe Boku or Igbo, I don't know, all these fighters. And then for one reason or the others, when it has been established, it's proved that yes, this group or this individual, but the country where we're in, and the election is coming up again, and they'll switch talk us. Those that they will sell their soul will sell their soul. But we're in it together. The only way we can get out of this is for you and I either to get involved in the politics, but the likes of you and I will not be encouraged. And do you have the money to waste? Because even to be in politics is money.
It's expensive.
It's expensive. And at the end of the day, it's still, look at the NSA thing. It's been turned around. It's been, all sort of things. But it's very sad where we found ourselves today. But we'll continue to advocate. And it's still left to us. Election is coming. Let's shine our eyes and let's make sure we do the right thing. And you see, all the prayer, this, prayer, that, yes, one day prayer will be answered. But for prayer to be answered, we are the architects of our life. So we need to do the needful.
Interesting. Finally, before we are done, the ongoing Ikoyi coroner's inquest is, like you said, still ongoing. We have you winced. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Is it still ongoing for the past 3 months? There's been about 2 or 3 different bodies. There's the investigation body. The panel set up by the government
in Abuja.
No, even the Lagos State.
Lagos State panel.
Which they said they were given 1 month. I believe they are finished over a month ago. How long does the coroner take? Will it take 2-3 months? I believe they've finished. So it's not that it's ongoing. Because one thing is, it's not that it's ongoing. A lot of the victims, or majority of the victims affected, has been buried. So is there any other postmortem or whatever they want to do? They've done all their tests.
To know what killed them.
So what are we still waiting for? You said to us, they're given 1 month. This is 3 months after. We haven't had the result. We haven't had the publication. We haven't had.
Coren seems, I think, has submitted his report to the panel in Abuja, and they said the engineering deficiencies were responsible for.
But is there? Have we seen it published in the media, in the paper, or have we had anything, or has anyone come up to you, or we have to
go. We have to go.
Yes.
Architect, thank you very much for your time. But in summary, what you're saying is that we need to have the political will and also the vision and ideas to come up with a solution, because this is too big for government to handle alone. Yeah. The private sector needs to be brought in as consultants and empowered to do this on behalf of government, so that they can cover the entire area. Yeah. And of course, people must pay for the crimes they commit in terms of these collapsed buildings. Yeah. Thank you very much. David Majikunumi is the chairman of the Nigerian Institute of Architects Lagos State chapter, and that's the much we're going to take on this particular issue and this topic on PlusTvAfrica. We'll be monitoring it as the days go by on this channel.
All right, that's it on the show this morning. If you missed out on any part of the conversation, it's all right to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And do subscribe to our YouTube channel at PlusTvAfrica and PlusTvAfrica Lifestyle. I am Messi Bufo.
And I'm Kofi Bartels. Thank you very much for your time. We return tomorrow. Keep watching. Good morning.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers. You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the barbing, I pay my rent. On the barbing, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
I will do everything to take Lagos out of the national grid.
When you actually buy your land and you want to build, it's more expensive than when you buy into a property that is being developed for affordable housing. You buy the house plot for 4 million, you will clear the land, you will pay your money fees, the community fees, you would start possibly sanfill the land, and then from there again you start producing. Now, because there's no large economy of scale, you will actually buy your block around 300 naira per block. If you are dealing with an affordable housing company, your block cost might come up to about 220, 250 because they are producing themselves. We try to eliminate third party as much as possible. If your land is triangular, you are going to waste a lot of money in construction.
Are you serious?
If your land is very irregular, up here, bent here, come out here, it's going to affect your design. The more edges you have, the more costly it becomes for you. So a rectangular land is actually the best buy.
Space and style. 6:30 p.m. on Saturdays and 5:30 p.m. on Wednesdays.
My name is Prince Olasheni Kosoko, and here is my good old days story. I was born at the Lagos Island maternity into a family of royals. My father, from the Kosoko royal chieftaincy family, is a fourth generation of the direct descendant of King Kosoko, who reigned as Oba of Lagos between 1845 and 1851. While my mother was from the PlusTvAfrica chieftaincy family, both of them of blessed memories. I come from a middle-class family, with my father starting off as a school teacher and ending up as a quantity surveyor, while my mother worked as a secretary/receptionist for a multinational company in Lagos. Even though I come from a Muslim home, I started my early schooling at the Holy Cross Catholic School at Oil Mill Street, Lagos Island, at the instance and insistence of Mrs. Ayodele, aka Mama Teacher, against my father's preference for a Muslim school. I had the opportunity to mix with my schoolmates, as I had to walk the about 3 kilometers distance from my school in Oil Mill Street through Bangboshe Street, with distractions along the way, especially at Iteku Cemetery, where we plug falling fruits, play pranks, and those who had issue to sort with themselves will slug it out physically there. Then all the way to Massey Street, where Mama Teacher served and had an after-school lessons for us. This is where I will have my lunch and siesta until my mom comes to pick me up for home after closing from work. By the way, the Iteku Cemetery, located on Igbo Shere Road, Joseph Street, is where great sons of Lagos like Abad Macaulay, Ajayi Crowther, etc. were buried. Their remains were later removed from there, and the cemetery later gave way to a sports center. We lived at Evans Street, Lagos Island, opposite the Eti Chieftaincy Family Palace in the 60s and until the early 70s, when we moved to the middle-class Surulere neighborhood, where I lived most of my formative years. Those were days when the Lagos Municipal Transport Service, otherwise known as LMTS buses number 28, conveyed us from the popular CMS bus stop to the end of Adelabu Street, where we resided. Bus number 27 takes you to Ogunlano Drive, and my stop was Alhaji Masha bus stop. My sojourn in life took me to Comprehensive High School, Ayetoro in Ogun State. where I was privileged to meet other students from diverse backgrounds, including foreigners. It was a very interesting period, having to leave Lagos on my own for the first time. We boarded vehicles flying Lagos to Abeokuta, from where we connect the buses that take us to Ayetoro. It was always very amusing when you read such inscriptions like, "One with God, no hurry in life, Wale ki ojoko Oluwa omo ero okan, Jisoro pawo," etc., etc. on those buses. The most amazing way to feel your arrival in Abeokuta is the loud music of Ayinla Omowura, the Akpala legend that rents the air through the length and breadth of the motor park at Lafenwa, and indeed any motor park in Abeokuta. My holidays were very exciting and something to long for, because I would spend part of it with my paternal grandmother at Isaleko, where she plied her trade in the sale of fried fish and shrimps. Staying with her offered me all opportunity to explore the wider Lagos Lagoon at Ebute-Ero and environs, including the Igaidu-Goro Palace, where the late Oba Adeyinka Oyekon II through the gates of the palace opened to all and sundry. I recall with nostalgic feelings how we as children go to play with our neighborhood friends, tire out after play, have dinner, and rest our heads in our neighbors' houses without any fear of abuse or molestation. My extended family, even though was largely dominated by Muslims, comprises of Christians and traditionalists. We all partook in all the celebrations to festivals like Eid al-Maulud, Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Kabir, Ileya, Christmas, Easter, Eyo Masquerade, Egungun, Gelede, Efe, and Fanti festivals. What with the visits to the sandy beaches in Lagos, to the beaches of Badagry, where we also had the opportunities to visit the first story building in Nigeria, as well as the relics of slave trade in Nigeria and the point of no return, where the ships who took slaves away depart from. How can I forget my first trip to the United Kingdom in 1980 via Nigerian Airways, when my return ticket was bought at the cost of 297 naira, and full BTA of 1,000 naira got me 780 pounds sterling, and no visa was required for such trip. Life was so good that my Lagos State bursary of 500 naira per session was more than enough to form a big boy. Remarkably, a close friend and I combined equal contributions of 300 naira each and bought a Volkswagen Igala for 600 naira in 1980, a car we jointly owned and drove around Lagos. Did we paint Lagos red? The rest is left for your imagination. So much to learn from the strong communal bonds of those days. A lot to digest about religious tolerance in those days. So, where did we get it wrong? Will our children believe us when we say we had so much fun in those days? I wonder how fast we have lost our moral and to a large extent cultural values. For me, it is not a hopeless situation. All lads should therefore be on deck to continue to inculcate those time-tested values in our children for a better society. We can change the narrative. Our children must now be made to embrace the time-honored value of integrity, honesty, and respect for the dignity of others. Our challenge will now be to focus on how we can, instead of talking about the good old days, be projecting into a future that is greater than our past. Our children certainly deserve a brighter and better tomorrow, not the good old days. I therefore join others in joining Sir Shemo Orebadejo in this collective drive towards a greater tomorrow. Thank you.
Many thanks for joining us on the news brief. I am Messi Bopo. Anxiety has enveloped students and university staff as the Union of University ASU Executive Council meeting is ongoing. The meeting, which took place at the University of Lagos, Akoka, convened by the union to decide action to take following the alleged and issues that the federal government refused to accede to the demands of the union. The union had last week hinted that decision whether to proceed or to protest the government's action to render services would be ongoing. NEC meeting expected tomorrow in Lagos. The decision, which will be determine the fate of the students of universities across the country who return to campuses after the break. The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project SERAP lawsuit against President Muhammadu Buhari and the Minister of Culture Lai Mohammed over the failure to publish condition the federal government signed with Twitter International. In a suit, SERAP is arguing that publishing the agreement would enable Nigerians to scrutinize it, seek legal appropriate action, and ensure that conditions for lifting the suspension it's adequate. Twitter not used as pretext to legitimate discourse. The federal government had lifted the suspension of Twitter Nigeria, stating that Twitter acted with respectful and Nigerian laws and international laws. No date has been fixed for the suits. Meanwhile, at a news briefing, Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed noted that crowdfunding GoFundMe has shut down and raised funds for truckers after over $10 million, adding that suspended the truckers' account. Ontario government has frozen millions of dollars donated through fundraising platform Give, Send, Go protesters. It would be recalled that during the #EndSARS protests against police and bad governance that took place in Nigeria in 2020 in October, the government condemned the action that quelled it. Youth converged on Gombe Governor Yahaya Bello's rescue mission. There were galvanized support for Kogi State Governor ahead of the 2023 elections. The youth who were in Kano last insisted Governor Bello must be president, ensuring him of 30 consecutive votes across the breadth of Nigeria. The group, which has youth support, agitating for good and youthful governance in Nigeria. At least 5 dead bodies have been recovered from the collapsed building in recent Yaba, Lagos, according to the Lagos Emergency Management, LASEMA. 2 workers survived the incident and rescue operations on the building site, which have been concluded. We have our correspondent, Paul George.
24 hours after the incident, the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency said rescue operation has reached ground zero. However, some residents are not convinced that those trapped have all been rescued. Director General of LASEMA, Dr. Femi Oke Osointolu, said further investigation has commenced to seek the immediate and remote cause of the collapse to prevent future occurrence. While a member of the Lagos State House of Assembly, Moshood Oshun, was on ground to ascertain the extent of damage.
We recovered 4 bodies, and the 4 bodies are in the mortuary. Again, we rescue 1 person. However, during the process of ongoing, another person was rescued.
Now, talking about the issue of building collapse, the state has been working on it. We have so many laws. We have so many people violating these laws. But I think what we can do is keep enforcing those laws. We want to be sure that those approvals were followed. Those are the things we need to do first. But for now, I don't think that's the issue. The issue is how many lives can we save?
Families of one of the victims, Mandela, who hails from Jos, were seen grieving. They want the owner of the building to transport the body of their late son home.
Monday is my brother, so Naim bring me for Lagos.
We did here to request on it, make you do us one favor like that to take him to our place. That is what we want the man to do for us.
Also, residents who witnessed the incident recounted the ordeal.
Incident happened 2:45 or thereabouts. and we couldn't get anything until about 6, 7. Before their arrival, communal efforts, they were able to rescue one guy. Before the incident, a lot of people, some people were, making some insinuations about the structure, not the foundation. Not the foundation. Something technically went wrong.
I was the first person to see it. Before the excavator came in, it was late at night, around 8 or thereabout.
Meanwhile, the Lagos state government said it has arrested the developer of the property for breaking the seal on the property and violating the stop work order. However, residents are waiting to see if there will be any prosecution, as this is one collapse too many. Paul George for PlusTvAfrica.
The Niger State Police Command says men have been killed in scores of terrorists fought on the Nasco in Manga local government area of the cartel. However, tactical team was sent for reinforcement to the area where military personnel engaged bandits in a fierce gun along the area. Abiodun said that the shootout lasted 2 hours while hoodlums were escaped with the cartel. Consequently, scores of bandits neutralized and the Russell cows recovered. The Oyo State government says it has announced the next Olubadan on Monday following the death of the occupant of the throne who passed on January the 2nd, speaking during the final burial, late Olubadan Oba Saliu. Governor Seyi Makinde said he had a letter of recommendation from kingmakers who would do without further ado and delays. The Delta State government has a primary school in Asaba of death of a 19-month-old pupil. The victim died from injuries. Teacher Emeka Nwagbo, who flogged him on Monday, leaving his body very injured. The little boy was said to have been badly injured after being beaten and taken to a federal medical center, Asaba. His condition deteriorated until he died on Saturday morning. The Delta State Commissioner for Education, Chika Osezie, said this has not been approved by the state. Meanwhile, the accused teacher is in police custody while the case is ongoing. Following the uproar in petrol stations, the country, Nigerians have lamented troubles encountered in clean petrol. But if there's any consolation, our correspondent went around stations in Lagos and gathered that the queues have reduced in the city. Jacinta Obioku has more in this report.
Millions of Nigerians were this week thrown into chaos amid scarcity of fuel across the country. There were long queues at many filling stations in some major cities across the country. Many motorists opted for black market sellers to fuel their vehicles. In quest for an update, we went to one of the NNPC stations in Lagos at Alfred Ruwan Road. We discovered that the queue for fuel had reduced compared to previous days. An official off the camera told us that normalcy had returned. Some of the buyers believe the queue reduced because it's weekend, as many people are at home.
It's improving now for about 2 days now. I think it's better. I'm coming from Idumota area now, and the queue is here, but not much. But here is much better in Ikoyi here.
For now, things are improving. Please, you can see fuel buy, but the most important thing is to be sure what we are buying and putting inside our vehicle. So government should do something so that we won't be having all these challenges and facing difficulties if we want to buy fuel.
It's a huge embarrassment, and that we are still having queues after, donkey years of democratic practice in Nigeria. As you can see, we are still on queue, queuing for fuel. You queue for everything almost in this country.
We hope that things will have been normalized, but up till now, we still have some filling stations that are not selling, probably hoarding their fuel or something. We are not supposed to be going through all of this. So we hope things get better so soon.
They should work on it so we won't be suffering to get fuel in our own country. It's very, very bad.
While on patrol, we also discovered that some filling stations were not opened at all, like this one. Amid the uncertainty over the way forward and the crisis trailing the importation of adulterated petrol, the federal government has raised a technical panel to manage the situation and ensure the situation returns to normalcy. Jacinta Obiuku for Plus TV Africa.
Anxiety disorder has caused more harm than could ever be imagined. According to psychologists, it says it has led attendants to more effects on health and deaths. In our next report, our health correspondent Ngozi Hesechi looks at the emotional dysfunctionality that it leaves people with.
Natural response to stress. It's a feeling of fear and apprehension about what's to come. But if your feelings of anxiety are extreme, last longer than 6 months, then it's said to be an anxiety disorder. According to psychiatrists, anxiety disorders are the most common form of emotional disorder and can affect anyone at any age.
Globally, researchers estimate about 4,802 total cases of anxiety disorder per 100,000 worldwide in 2020. And in Nigeria, there is a high rate of anxiety and depression. Approximately 25 to 30% of Nigerians suffer from one form of anxiety or depression during the COVID pandemic. This is according to a research work done by Maimuna Yusuf Kadiri, a psychiatrist and a psychotherapist. Dr. Selin Njoko is a counseling psychologist with over 25 years of experience. She's also a fellow with the Counseling Association of Nigeria. She states that there are causative agents that lead to anxiety apart from medical causes.
It could be unemployment, it could be family you're coming from. If the family is not stabilized or you have a quarrel, you have a problem with your family, it can lead to depression. You are not Ngozika. Ngozika is Ngozika.
In Nigeria, there have been cases of young people going into ritual killings, husbands killing their wives killing their husbands, caregivers maltreating children, and students bullying their fellow students. It's believed that such a cruel act has to do with the mind. Selin has this to say.
You cannot just wake up and start doing something like that. You must have been depressed. You must have been in a state of sadness. And what is depression? There is no accurate definition of depression. Depression is complicated. Depression has no one way